I was at y'all. It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and now we got to look at the defense and special teams, advanced stats, and pro football focus grades from that week 1 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. We got to dive into all of it. Of course, Darrick Forrest balled out. We got to see, did they actually reward him for balling out? Is he the highest grade like it seemed like he should have been? How were all of the other starters? Again, we're out of the preseason. We're into the regular season, so it's less players involved in the grades, but we get more in depth with the grades because it's more snaps. We get to see more so of like, oh, this guy's doing this. Like, this guy's the slot corner. This guy's the outside corner. This guy's the primary edge rusher. This guy's the primary linebacker. Things like that. So we're going to take a look at snap counts and everything and where everybody was and how they were utilized. Now, granted, it may change week to week due to game plan changes and, you know, depending on the offense that we're going against, maybe a run heavy team versus a pass heavy attack. Still, this week 1 against the Jaguars does give us a decent glimpse of what our defense should look like throughout the year. Overall, again, there's going to be changes week to week, but for the most part, we should see some things that should be the same. And of course, it's going to be really interesting because Darrick Forrest balled out against the Jaguars. Cameron Curl may return against the Lions, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how much Darrick Forrest plays with Cameron Curl coming back. I think Darrick Forrest should just take over the strong safety spot. Cameron Curl move to Buffalo nickel, and then the times that Darrick Forrest is not on the field, Cameron Curl go back to the strong safety. I think that makes the most sense, but that's a discussion in another video, honestly. So before we dive in all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Friday for the broadcast podcast. We will not be having it today, not this week, but make sure you pull up every other week, and also make sure you pull up every Sunday for the during the game live streams. I already have it scheduled on the channel, so you can go click on it, set the notification to get notified when I start it up. I'm starting at 12:45 because we play at 1 p.m. And then of course come after the game as well for the post-game live stream an hour after the game ends, so we can discuss what happened in the game. I'm gonna give my opinions, and I'm gonna also open up the phone lines for y'all to give y'all opinions. And without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so the cat's out the bag. Darrick Forrest was our highest graded player, and hey, I kind of got lucky because only 18 players were graded out of our entire team, and it actually happens to be that all of the guys fit. But again, it's the regular season, it's not the preseason, so it's less guys playing, but I still got kind of lucky. We're just one line away from it being too many players, so I was really happy about that when it came to editing my video. But my boy Darrick Forrest was number 1, and I mean, the most notable thing is, first of all, his coverage, because we knew coming out of the draft that he would be a really good special teams player, and I was confident in what he can do in the box. But his problem was he would miss his tackles. He's a heavy hitter, but he's like a gambler. He's either gonna do the hit like he did against, I think it was Travis Etienne or James Robinson, one of them, or he's gonna just completely miss. At least that's what it seemed like coming out of the draft. So it's really encouraging that his tackle grade was high and his coverage grade was even better, because those were literally the two things that I was worried about the most when we drafted him. I think it's also very interesting and very noteworthy that, you know, technically this is his sophomore season in the NFL, but he barely played last year. He was already a backup, and then he got hurt for the majority of the season. So this is kind of like his rookie season. This is like the equivalent of like his 6th game played, I think, in his NFL career, maybe even less than that. And then second, you have Daron Payne. Third, you have Montez Sweat. Fourth, Jonathan Allen. And fifth, Jeremy Reeves. Now, Jeremy Reeves only played 6 snaps, but they liked what he did there, especially tackling wise, and that's continuing from the preseason. He's had high tackling grades all preseason, so apparently he's improved as a tackler, and that's really interesting coming out of the free safety position. That's a good trait to have, because you're the last line of defense for like a running play, being the difference between a 15-yard run or like an 80-yard touchdown run. So I'm glad he has that. Still need to improve in other ways, but I mean, it's hard to get into a rhythm when you only play 6 snaps, and of course Darian Mathis only played in 6 snaps, but I felt like he was pretty effective in those snaps. Then he got hurt, and it looks like we've lost him for the season. Percy Butler only played 9 snaps, and they felt like his tackling was really good, which is also very encouraging because you'd expect it to be the opposite. You'd expect his coverage to be high and his tackling to be low, so that's really encouraging that his tackling has improved. And Cole Holcomb didn't have a good game, so I'm not surprised by his low grade. Shaka Toney, I don't even remember him being out there, but apparently he played 2 snaps. They didn't like what he did, but this is a really interesting assortment of snaps. I mean, the only person to play all 100 every snap in the game were William Jackson, Kendall Fuller, and Cole Holcomb. And of course, Kendall Fuller being at the very bottom is really notable. I mean, it was a bad game from him, honestly. And it's crazy because Pro Football Focus loves him more than our fan base does. So I'm shocked that they were like, yeah, Kendall Fuller, I'm sorry. We think you're the second best corner in the NFL according to grades last year, but you went out there and did not look good. He was getting targeted, and it shows in his grade. It also showed on tape. It showed live. I mean, we could all see Kendall Fuller getting targeted. Benjamin St-Juste didn't play well. Casey Hill, he made more plays than I thought he would, especially in 30 snaps. And I felt like he played better than what his grade says, but that's one of those things I'm going to have to look at the film and see what he did on plays that he wasn't very impactful, and that's probably why his grade is so low. But again, your top five are Darrick Forrest, by far, the only one with an even 80 grade. He's a 91.5. Deron Payne second with a 76.7. He played really well. I'm surprised his grade is this low. I guess they're being very critical of him because, I mean, I thought he played very well. He looks like a guy that's trying to play for his next big contract. He looked like it. Montez Sweat third, Jonathan Allen fourth, and Jeremy Reeves fifth. And now we're going to run defense. Jamin Davis was our best run defense guy, which is like, if you saw what he did last year, you would think never in a million years. And now, granted, his overall grade wasn't excellent, and I can understand that because he wasn't great in coverage. They felt like he was the worst player in coverage on our entire team. I mean, even worse than Kendall Fuller. But at the end of the day, like, he was matched up against Christian Kirk, and what linebacker in the NFL can honestly cover Christian Kirk one-on-one? There's probably maybe 3 to 5, maybe if that. But at the same time, even when looking at that whole situation with Christian Kirk, even when you look at it as like, oh yeah, it's Christian Kirk, what do you expect? There were still things that he could have done to help his situation. So even though it was Christian Kirk, he also didn't cover well, even if it wasn't for Christian Kirk. But I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that it was a guy that is that fast and out of the slot. Jamin Davis not supposed to be covering them. Thank goodness Cameron Curl may be coming back against the Lions, because that would ultimately be Cameron Curl's job rather than Jamin Davis. Even though you would hope that with Jamin Davis, with him being known as a freak athlete, and that's really like the only thing he has going for him right now that we can bank on, you would think he'd be better, but he's working on it. But going back, man, run defense 76.1, and if you watched him closely in the preseason, you wouldn't be surprised. If you only watched what he did last season, you would be kind of surprised. But in the preseason, he improved a lot in run defense. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at the film to really see what he did. I've watched the film quite a bit, but I was more so looking at offensive things and stuff like that. But Jamin Davis, man, he actually looked good in run defense. I'm not surprised that he had our highest grade. I am surprised that some of these other guys are so low. Like, I mean, Benjamin St-Juste, you're not surprised. That's the reason he's not our certified starting slot corner. When it's obvious passing downs, you clearly have him in as like your slot, technically your Buffalo nickel you want to call it. If he were better in run defense, he would be our starting nickel like full time, but we have to take him off of the field when you think there's even some sort of chance that they're running the ball, and this is why. And that's why Cameron Curl has a job as the Buffalo nickel when he comes back. Percy Butler played a little bit there in that last game against the Jaguars that we're covering right now. Darrick Forrest got a couple of snaps. If Benjamin St-Juste were a certified run stopper, he would literally be the Buffalo nickel. So I just wanted to show y'all that, just because there's a reason that we're still, going in and out with who's going to be Buffalo nickel. I think Cameron Curl, when he comes back, is going to be our starting Buffalo nickel. But again, it would just be more complicated and a good problem to have if Benjamin St-Juste is better against the run. At least not terrible. Also, Cole Holcomb, is sad to see him so far down here because that's like his main job. He's the Mike linebacker. I'm surprised that he was this low. But from the few plays that I did notice him on run defense, he didn't look good. And then all of these other guys, I mean, you would prefer for them to be better, but a lot of these guys are pass rushers for the most part, or corners, guys that cover, but you would prefer for them to be better. But it's very encouraging that Jamin Davis not only was our best run defender, but was like the best by far. That's very encouraging. And Darrick Forrest, man, he was just overall just great. Even though a 67.2 doesn't sound good, that was still second out of our entire defensive unit. Pass rush wise, William Jackson was actually first, had 2 hurries. So shouts out to Jack Del Rio, man. I mean, we have our complaints about him, and I'm still not too sure about him overall, but he dialed up some pretty effective blitzes. I mean, he blitzed at the right time with the right players. We barely blitzed at all, but when he did, it was very effective, and that's how it should be. Then you had Benjamin St-Juste, who apparently, oh yeah, that one play where he forced Trevor Lawrence into an intentional grounding. That was a great blitz. That was another great blitz call by Jack Del Rio and great execution by both of these guys. Jamin Davis looked pretty good coming up the middle a couple of times. I mean, one time a running back picked him up and he pretty much disregarded the running back. And if Trevor Lawrence held onto the ball for half a second longer, Jamin Davis would have been there for the sack. Daron Payne balling out, Jonathan Allen balling out with the sack that he had. Bobby McCain blitz even once, and then Montez Sweat doing his thing. I'm surprised his is this low because I saw him always one step away from Trevor Lawrence a lot. I mean, he's the reason that Trevor Lawrence threw that dumb interception to Darrick Forrest. That was Montez Sweat chasing him down. Shaka Toney, I mean, his calling card is pass rush, so I'm surprised it's this low, but he technically only had one snap, and I guess he wasn't very effective on that snap. Darrick Forrest, I do remember him being sent to kind of like blitz off the edge. He was literally like a delayed edge rusher one time, and he did what he could against a starting offensive tackle, a starting left tackle in the NFL. Wasn't a bad rep, but it also wasn't a great one. So 58.3 sounds about right there. And then all these other guys, you just don't really expect these guys to be that good at pass rushing. Even though Daniel Wise, I liked what I saw from him in the preseason pass rushing wise, and I liked what I saw from F.L. Bada and James Smith-Williams in the preseason as far as rushing the passer, but they just didn't step up that well against the Jaguars. But man, my boy Jamin Davis, stop playing with him. Run defense and pass rush, improving, man, improving. And just to look at overall stats, I mean, as far as pressures go, Daron Payne had 5, Jonathan Allen had 5, Montez Sweat had 5, Daniel Wise had 3, Casey Toohill had 4. So I'm surprised their grades are this low because I felt like that's pretty effective. Like Casey Toohill had 2 hits and 2 hurries. I guess the plays he was bad, he was really bad, which canceled out the great plays that he had. Kendall Fuller even had a pressure with a hurry, just like the other blitzers. Again, the corners, safeties, and linebackers barely blitzed, but when they did, they were there. Jamin Davis blitzed 8 times, he got 1 pressure out of it. Benjamin St-Juste technically was sent at the quarterback 3 times, got 2 pressures. William Jackson only sent twice, got 2 pressures. Bobby McCain only sent once, got a pressure, actually a hurry. Kendall Fuller only blitzed twice, got a hurry out of it. That was really effective blitzing out of the team and Jack Del Rio. Shout out to Jack Del Rio for that. We gotta get on his neck when he's not doing his job, but when he does well, we gotta give him credit as well. Those blitzes were great calls. And again, great execution from the players as well. Coverage wise, Darrick Forrest by far our best guy. Cole Holcomb, I'm surprised, was 2nd. Jeremy Reeves 3rd. Percy Butler 4th. So our younger guys stepping up. Casey Toohill and James Smith-Williams and F.L. Bada and Daniel Wise. All these guys are higher than your safety, your starting outside corner, your starting slot corner, your starting other outside corner, and then your linebacker that supposedly is supposed to be our best linebacker in coverage. So that's not good. That's not good. But granted, I mean, defensive linemen in coverage, they're not asked to do as much. They're not out there covering Christian Kirk like Jamin Davis was. But still, that's just not a good look. We expect better grades out of all of these guys below Jonathan Allen and all these defensive linemen. And of course, if you want to, really sit here and analyze all of the stats, you can pause the video if you want to. We're going to keep it pushing. Also, before we move on, just to remind y'all, Darrick Forrest had 1 pass breakup, a great one in the back of the end zone, and that 1 interception that was caused by Montez Sweat. Man was balling. And he was the only player to have an interception or a pass breakup, and he had both out of our entire team. That's not good, but Darrick Forrest balled out, and I'm really optimistic about his future on this team. I could definitely see a future where it's him, Cameron Curl, and maybe we draft like a really rangy free safety at some point that can step up and be that guy. Hopefully that's Percy Butler. I really hope that's Percy Butler though. Then looking at coverage matchups, again, Kendall Fuller was terrible. Christian Kirk did the best against him. Again, anytime you want to just take some time to really look at this and analyze it, you can always pause it. Matter of fact, we'll move it over here so y'all can see all of the stats that you may want to look at. Then William Jackson, not great in coverage. Zay Jones did the best against him. Jamin Davis, of course, Christian Kirk did the best against him, but James Robinson also got him. And Travis Etienne, even though he didn't have a great overall wide receiver grade for the day, did pretty well against Jamin Davis as well. Then Darrick Forrest, great coverage, and pretty much anybody he was against, he shut down. Christian Kirk has that high of a grade because of what he did against everybody else. Benjamin St-Juste, Christian Kirk did the best against him as well. Percy Butler struggling against James Robinson and Evan Ingram. Cole Holcomb, the reception that Evan Ingram had against him, I mean, that was great coverage. It was just a great ball by Trevor Lawrence and a great contested catch by Evan Ingram. That's why Cole Holcomb wasn't given a negative grade for that, because that coverage was actually really good. Jeremy Reeves, only covered Evan Ingram technically. Bobby McCain struggled against Zay Jones. And then they do it from the view of the receiver as well. So I'm going to just scroll slowly. If you want to pause it to take a look at any of these, you can. But we're just going to go ahead and scroll through this slowly, pause it whenever you want to. And let's go ahead and move on to special teams. And with special teams, it's not really much to dive into as far as like separate parts of their game. I mean, the only guy really is Dax Milne as far as kickoff returns and punt returns. He had a 58 grade on kickoffs and a 62 grade on punt returns. Not great, not bad in either category. Of course, Joey Sly, 60 grade in kickoffs. And even though he never attempted a field goal, only PATs, and he made all of them, they gave him a 62.3 grade on field goals for some reason. I don't know what he did wrong. I don't know how you grade that negatively when he made everything he was asked to do, but hey, it is what it is. And then Tressway had a 56.7 grade on punts. And now just to look at the highest grades: Jonathan Williams, David Mayo, Mila Eifler, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Shaka Toney, Cameron Cheeseman, and Christian Holmes round out the top 7. That's how they contributed. John Bostic, the only snaps he got were on special teams. A lot of these guys, the only snaps they got were on special teams, but it's still encouraging to see that they're contributing. Armani Rogers, who's out there playing with the starters at times, got some snaps at special teams, did his thing. And apparently our worst special teams players were our starters, Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. Casey Two-Hills, part of a heavy rotation that's almost like he's starting. So I thought that was really interesting. They felt like Tressway didn't have a good game. I don't remember his punts negatively affecting our team like that, but apparently Pro Football Focus didn't like what he did against the Jaguars. And again, a lot of our worst special teams players are starters, but that's not really their job. So I'm glad to see that a lot of the younger guys that are literally here for special teams more than anything else doing their jobs. And I didn't really notice any special teams issues, special teams coverage, special teams returning and things like that. Nothing was great, but also nothing was bad. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Of course, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, and also let me know if you want me to continue this series every week after every game. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.